What up, man? It's your big brother K-Rino, and getting ready to do an interview that I want to let y'all in on. And it's gonna be pretty nice. I'm dealing with my homies, Big Phil in the building, and my homie Chris is in the building, and your big brother. So let's get it in. Let's get it on. All right. Hope y'all can see. Hope it ain't too dark.
If I could get Chris, when you're ready, if you could, I don't know, just tell me.
Okay, test.
Tell me what you had for lunch.
I haven't had lunch.
Okay, we're good. We're rolling. So take your time and whenever you're ready to go.
All right, this is Phil Senatare. I am a professor of history at the College of Biblical Studies in Houston, and I am a scholar of American religion and African American studies. And part of my work looks at the history of hip hop and politics and culture. And so I'm excited to have a conversation with two friends and two folks who know the artistry of hip hop and have an inside track on rap music.
My name's Chris Johnson. Born and raised a native Houstonian. Was in the hip hop and sports music entertainment business for 13 years, and after that made a transition into ministry. And so I'm really excited about just being here and just being a part of this discussion about the influence and the scope of hip hop in today's society in all spectrums.
And my name is K-Rino. I'm a member of a group called the South Park Coalition, rap organization that started in 1987. And since then, we've just been building and growing in terms of our membership and in terms of our involvement in the community. And I'm just honored to be here to participate in this.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm glad we could sit down and have this conversation. Kay, I wonder if you could tell us about yourself, just a brief biographical overview. Who are you and what do you do? Also, you stated that K-Rino, your stage name, stands for Killer Rhymes Intentionally Nullify Opponents. I wonder if you could discuss this with us.
Yes, sir. Killer Rhymes Intellectually Nullifying Opponents. I started in 83 as a writer, just being big time influenced by the pioneers of rap. Like you go back to Grandmaster Flash and Melly Mel and Run DMC and Curtis Blow and Sugar Hill. That was my first introductions to the hip hop, the rap, and fell in love with it and decided it was something that I wanted to do. Started writing in 83, released my first record in 87 with a group I was in called Real Chill, and at that time I think we were probably maybe the second or third hip hop group to release a record in the city of Houston, behind the Ghetto Boys and maybe a couple of other individuals. But so from 87 to present, about 30 plus years in the industry. So, and blessed to still be here.
Yeah, I wonder if you could talk about growing up in Houston a little bit and how that has come to influence your art.
I wouldn't trade it for the world because, of course, we know hip hop started on the East Coast, and I grew up in a time, I came up in music in a time where being from Houston and being from the South wasn't accepted as far as hip hop was concerned, because we just had the stigma of like we were country, we didn't really understand what it was all about. And over the years, because of individuals like Scarface and the Ghetto Boys and other people that actually broke through, we were able to come along behind those guys and really prove that stereotype wrong. So that's a badge of honor and pride that I wear just being from Houston. Like, we did it, and actually seeing a lot of guys that are from the city reach those heights in my time in the game. It proved not only to us as artists, but I think it proved to the world that Houston has a voice that could be of value in this hip hop industry.
Okay, I'm almost like a kid meeting Michael Jordan doing this, man, because and you and I have talked about this personally, uh, how much of an influence your music had on and still has on generations, right, of listeners, right, in terms of the different iterations of hip hop, locally, regionally, and nationally. But I want to revisit a conversation that you and I had outside of the post office on Southmore, when I was talking to you about, take us back to the beginning of your career, right? Your influences, not just commercially, but the guys around you who were really spitting, that really just, like, at what point did it really click that this is what you wanted to do?
Man, it's crazy because, like, when Phil was asking me, I was thinking about, like I say, the Melly Mels and the Run DMCs and all those guys. But when you said this guys in the city, when I was about 14 years old and I was staying on Selinsky down at Dead End.
Right.
It was a guy who moved into our apartment complex. He moved into the apartments with his sister. He was from New York. His name was T-Mac T. That was his rap name. Long before Tracy McGrady was T-Mac. It was T-Mac T.
Shout out to T-Mac T.
And this guy was the first rapper that wasn't a big name artist, that wasn't on the radio, that I had ever met.
Right.
That blew my mind.
Right.
Blew my head off. I had been doing a few battles and stuff in school and in the neighborhood, but this guy was so dynamic and so explosive in his delivery, in his punchlines and his wordplay. And if I was 14, he had to be maybe 16. He was a little older, 17 maybe. And I couldn't believe how great he was, so I just started hanging around him.
Right.
And I would knock on his door and come out, and he would tell me about different stuff in New York, and just and when he would rap, he just commanded so much attention. When he went in, the crowd just stopped what they was doing to look at him.
Right.
And I picked that up from him in terms of just how to project and explode when you hit that mic, or even when you just spitting in a circle.
Right.
So and I mentioned him at times over the years, but this is the first time I probably mentioned him in a long time. But he was so great, man, that I took a lot. I extracted a lot from him in terms of my presence.
Right.
And wherever he is, man, I gotta salute him, because he helped to kind of mold me and give me that confidence. When you come out like that, you gonna scare the hell out of somebody.
Right on. I don't think a lot of people really know this or realize that Houston has a very rich battle rap culture.
No doubt.
Right? And so, talk to us a little bit about that in terms of those lyrical bullpen sessions, man, that you would have with guys that really sharpened you and sharpened your artistry, man, and take us back, man, take us back to 84, 85, 86, 87, when that was really being forged.
I mean, people don't know that's how Houston started. Houston didn't start in hip hop or in rap just immediately industry oriented.
Right.
It was gladiator mode.
Right.
Everybody was trying to prove that they were a better rapper than the other guy. So all it was battling. All it was in the hallways of the school, in the bathrooms of the school, on the street corners, trying to prove who's the best MC. And I was fortunate enough to come up through those kind of ranks, because like you said, it did sharpen my skills because I wasn't the only one that had something.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it was so many greats. You know, you talk about Klondike Cat,
Right.
who was
Right.
so advanced for his time, you know, around the same age, maybe a year or so older than me, but just was so much more advanced. It's like, man, who is this dude? You know, like I said, T Mac and guys like Romeo Poet and Willie D on the north side. These guys were battling and just humiliating people, you know. So, and I was doing the same thing on my side of town.
Right.
So,
Right.
And you would, every now and then you would come across these individuals, and even if you didn't battle them, you might see it's like two warriors or a set of warriors. Like, okay, you know, I'm ready, I'm prepared to go to war with this guy, but I really don't want to if I don't have to.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so that's kind of like, then Nip comes along later when doing. So
Right.
it did make all of us better, and it was so competitive at the time that people battled beyond rap. Used to have, back in those days, nobody had equipment at their house and beat machines and all that. People would battle. People have beatbox battles. You know, because I had my own personal beatbox guy that would, when I battled or when I rapped, he was doing my beats. Then you had guys like Big Mello, who at that time was Curtis D. He was one of the greatest beatboxers in the city. And guys would battle to see who was the best beatboxer, not just the rappers. So it was competitive all the way around, man.
So with this sort of cultural production, cultural creation taking place within the communities, these battle raps, can you talk about how that context, that setting, eventually gives birth to the South Park Coalition? So you have guys battling one another, and then they decide to sort of join forces, so to speak.
Absolutely. It was the key. It was what, to me, is what made us, because the South Park Coalition in its early stages, around 87, only consisted of artists that went to my school. It was just only Sterling rappers. It was me, it was GT, it was Preppy J, Easy T, guys like that, C-Rock, Rapper K. And, but we was all at the same school, so it was just, we was organization through affiliation. We just all homeboys. But as I was saying earlier, when that competitive side came out, when it reached a time where me and Nip actually had to clash to see who was going to have South Park supremacy at that time, all of those guys went to Jones. So you got Nip at Jones, you got Klondike Cat at Jones, AC Chill, Murder One, and K-Rock Def, countless other guys at Jones. And when me and Nip battled, after we got through battling, the mutual respect was so high, because it's like a boxing match. We both, it's like Ali Frazier. We both coming in feeling like, I'm gonna wipe this guy out real quick, and it's gonna be over with. I'm gonna show this dude who I am, and he thinking the same thing. But after 7, 8 rounds later, and everybody scratching their head like, man, I don't know, go again. That's all they kept saying, go again, because they wanted to keep it going. And it's crazy because after me and Nip battled, and the crowd dispersed, people just went their separate ways or whatever, got on the bus this way, walked off that way. And me and Nip started walking in the same direction. And we just walking in the same direction. I'm like, oh, where we going? You know? And we ended up walking to the same bus stop.
Right.
And sitting down. So it's awkward, like, just got through talking about this dude mama, and he just got through slashing my throat. Now we sitting at the bus, and we just looked at each other and started laughing. And we got on the same bus, and we was like that cool ever since. So when me and Nip got cool, of course, all his people came over, and we started hanging out in Murphy. So that's what made the South Park Coalition as strong as it was, because if it wasn't for the Jones rappers, we wouldn't have been as strong as we are, because they really had the best group of MCs in the city, artist for artist. So.
Right, and you were at Sterling?
I was at Sterling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But Jones, man, Jones had a roster, man. And they were like Golden State, man. It was stacked, man. It wasn't even fair, because it's a lot of guys that I didn't even name. You know, you had guys like Hard Rock C and Martini, MRC. They had so many guys, man, that were just top notch guys. Murder One, and if it was just a battle royal, we would have lost. We got destroyed, man. It'd have been like Custer, you know what I'm saying? But me and Nip were the heads, and by us clashing and gaining that respect, it brought everybody together.
Yeah, that theme of bringing everybody together, of course, is part of what we discuss in Houston more broadly. So I wonder if you can tell us where you came up with the name South Park Coalition.
Yeah, man.
And how the SPC today represents Houston's racial and ethnic and cultural diversity.
Yeah, and when I decided to start the organization, I wanted to come up with a name for it because there were no groups in the South Park Coalition other than us. We were real chill, but it was just a bunch of individual artists. So I was like, man, what can we call ourselves? And I got a song called SPC that's on the Universal Curriculum album of the Big Seven. And I told a story like I was just flipping through a book, maybe an English book, a vocabulary book, and I just saw the word. It was coalition being used in a sentence in some other context, and I was like, that sounds cool. Like South Park Coalition, and then the initials had a good ring, SPC. It sounded real cool, so that's where that whole thing came from. But the diversity came later. If you think about just the cultural diversity, the racial diversity, that came after we kind of started getting some traction, because in the beginning you talk about we did just some hood rappers, just nothing but black guys just doing our thing. But once we kind of reached the point where we were like, when the internet kicked in and people overseas were really just checking for us like that, we started to connect with people in Europe. We started to connect with people in Germany and Australia, and it opened up the gates. All the while locally, we were connecting with a lot of our Latino brothers and sisters, because we had Grim, we had Falero, we had Shadow, we had all of our Latino brothers and sisters that were dope in making music also, and it just created a melting pot of fans and an audience that still exists right now.
Wow. So against that backdrop, right?
Yeah.
Because SPC is coming together. Talk about what's going on in the neighborhood in terms of, you got the crack cocaine epidemic going on.
Yeah.
So I know that's influencing rhymes. Right. Friends, they coming up, going to jail, dying. So talk about how did the times really influence your style and your writing and your thinking?
Big time, because it gave us something else to talk about other than how dope a MC I am.
Right.
Because you started to see your surroundings, you started to see this crack thing exploding like we saw it explode. It's like, man, this stuff is real. And we would have songs where we would mention about the struggles that people are dealing with that are on crack. You had other rappers starting to rap about selling the crack and glorifying the lifestyle, and so it was coming from different angles.
Right.
Then you had people like me, who was I would write just far-fetched, unbelievable type punchlines where I may say a line where I could smoke some crack and it won't even affect me. You know what I'm saying? Just saying something like that, but even though I wasn't doing it.
Right.
But it all tied in one way or another, because we saw how it just swept through the hood. We saw a lot of, like you said, our homeboys that came up and actually started selling it, and some that came up and started smoking, and not to mention the females that got caught up in it.
Right.
A lot of females got caught up in it. When you see the finest girl in school that you used to love so much, and all of a sudden she smoked out, so it had an effect all the way around. And as the 90s rolled in, you started to really see it being reflected in the music, the whole drug selling thing, whether it be from a standpoint of speaking against it, or a standpoint of glorification.
So this immersion into the community, seeing moments of devastation and destruction, but then also recognizing moments of creativity and survival within that. Uh, to me, that connects to some of the work you're doing these days with artists respecting community.
Yeah.
And so it's this idea of quote unquote giving back to the community, but I think it's more than that, even though it is that. So how does your work with ARC, artists representing community, represent your philosophy of life, um, but also your philosophy of music and your work as an artist?
Well, I have to. I got to first thank the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for planting the seed in his ministers to take the initiative to go back to their respective cities and organize the rappers. That was the first initial step of that. And my minister here locally in Houston, Dr. Abdul Halim Muhammad, y'all may know him as Robert Muhammad, he is one of those ministers that Minister Farrakhan commissioned to do that. Like, go back and get the rappers in your city. So when he came back, he reached out to me and was like, look, we got to get these artists together. And I was blessed enough to follow the instruction, and we started doing it maybe in like 2014, and just getting guys together. And initially it was just for, hey man, let's try two fronts: incorporate more consciousness into our music, and secondly, to teach artists the business side of it. Teach them about publishing. Teach them about even if it's things we didn't know, we would bring people in, or anybody was welcome to join that would help. But it grew because of the circumstances of the time that we living in.
Right.
The police brutality,
Right.
the shootings, and all these things started to happen. Hurricanes and things of this nature that created conditions where you had to spring into action, or we could spring into action and do things for the community. So Sister Fire, she came up with the name Artists Respecting Community, and it was such a great name because that's exactly what we're trying to exemplify and represent. Like, look, we are artists, but we feel that obligation to go out into the community and be a positive influence as opposed to projecting negativity all the time. And so far we've been growing, and so far we've been really starting to advance, and we got a lot of big things coming up too. So it's very, that's a very important part of my life and my career now, the ARC. So I'm glad to be a part of that.
So the role of mentoring and mentorship, as much as it is assisting upcoming artists.
Yeah, no doubt, because a lot you talking about different generations and different age groups when you talk about all these artists out here. So we have meetings, and at these meetings you're gonna have everybody. You're gonna have rappers there, singers, DJs, producers, graphic design people, anybody, any aspect of the game. And within the last couple of years, we've opened it up to anybody that wants to come. It's like, if you just a concerned citizen in the community, if you want to come and see what's going on, you can still be a part of it. So the mentorship, that's not just about the music. It's also about, well, look, man, because people say, man, what can I do to get involved out here in the community? How can I put my stamp on it and get out here in these streets with y'all? Come on, we'll show you. You know, we'll show you how to do it. If you're serious about getting out there and making a difference, you can't be scared to get out among the people. You can't be scared to go up under that bridge while those tents at with these homeless people and get out there and touch them and embrace them and help them out. You know, we can't be scared to intervene if it's a gang problem or just a beef going on in the communities. We got to be the ones to get out there and follow the instruction that Mr. Farrakhan gave out and try to save our people, plain and simple.
And so hip hop then is much more than the music.
Absolutely. It always has been though. You know, hip hop always has been. You know, it's just more than the music, because life is interjected into the music. The rappers are rap. You go all the way back to Melly Mel when he was doing The Message. You know, he's speaking about some cold, harsh conditions of life in that song that came out in probably 79, 80, 81, whenever it came out. So, absolutely, I tell people all the time that in the beginning, I was just doing it. I just doing the music. But as I grew and matured and started to recognize what's going on in the world, I understood that the music is only a conduit to relay the message. The message is the real point of all of this. It's okay, well, how can I get a message across? My way is the blessing and the gift I've been given is through rap. Other people may be the way you do it, the way you do it. So it all comes together with organizations like ARC, where when all these different talents and individuals can come together and we can combine those efforts, and your skills, my skills, his skills, her skills, all those things can work for the greater good of the whole.
Yeah, I want to return briefly to something you mentioned in your comments on artist respecting community, and that is part of your inspiration for engaging with artist respecting community. And you mentioned inspiration from Minister Farrakhan. You mentioned inspiration from Minister Robert Muhammad, Dr. Robert Muhammad. And so this brings me to another question related to hip hop culture and rap music, and that is the theme of religion and hip hop more broadly.
Right.
So I wonder if you can discuss how the art form of rap music and hip hop culture engages with themes of religion and spirituality. And so maybe you can talk about your own background to the extent that you feel comfortable talking about that. But then also to move it in a bit of a different direction, but also related. There's a genre in the industry known as Christian rap or gospel rap or Christian hip hop. So I wonder if you can offer your thoughts about this, especially in regards to recently, where artists upon whom this label rests have pushed back against it a little bit in the interest of artistic integrity and creative flexibility.
Yeah.
And I know, Chris, you have some thoughts on this as well, so feel free to chime in.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it goes back farther than hip hop. It goes all the way back when you talk about slaves on the plantation singing what they call the old Negro spirituals. And they would sing about the conditions under which they were living and the conditions that they had been subjected to. Then you fast forward it all the way up to just plain old gospel music from way, way, way back in the days. And still we singing about our connection, spiritual connection to the Creator. Then you're talking about conditions of the times in the 40s and 50s and the 60s when you hear songs like Sam Cooke singing "The Change Gonna Come," you Marvin Gaye singing "What's Going On," and things that are reflective of that time. All that pushes it all the way up to hip hop and rap. We did the same thing. That's all it is. We're doing the same thing. And we speak about our Creator, but some of us do it in a way where it may not necessarily just be